So this is my wall hanging project that we did in my fibers class. It has various forms of symbolism in it, and basically the story that it tells is my self-love journey, because I've struggled with that a lot growing up, and just learning how to love myself and accept myself and my body and my personality, just all of it. So it's been a real struggle, but I've tried to incorporate that throughout all my pieces in this class. And there's symbols like flowers and butterflies that, they're all things that start out as nothing and turn into something beautiful. So I use those as symbols to show basically my journey and coming to learn to love myself. And I use various colors to show my personality. I have a very colorful, bright personality, and I used darker colors to show me going from someone who struggled with those things to coming to terms with who I am and who I want to be in life. Much like my wall hanging, my needle-felted hood has a lot of the same symbolism in it, and basically tells the same story. Starts out from this dark areas and goes into much brighter areas. And I also used, various flowers, and birds is another thing. They take flight, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to fly off into a better life, and better thoughts and a better mentality. But yeah, this basically tells my self-love journey too, and just kind of tells a little bit about myself, like the sun and the moon, something that I use a lot to represent me and my personality. Some more butterflies and flowers, and yep.
The story my weaving tells is the story of a girl that daydreams a lot and kind of zones out and just imagines a better place. So this is my felted hood project, and it reflects my academic journey. I'm graduating this semester, so to represent that, I wanted to depict a rose, because it's something that kind of takes a while to grow, but once it fully blooms, it's beautiful. And I feel like that kind of represents the evolution of my academic journey, and I'm finally turning into a rose.
So this is my felted hood project. It is a runoff of the first project I did. Our entire fibers class was doing 4 projects, and each one was tied to the same story. My first one was about, we had to do a self-portrait, and so I wanted to focus on my journey as finding my words in social settings and figuring out how to speak properly. And so it was a self-portrait with a little frog in my mouth, representing the metaphor, a frog stuck in your throat, and just how I tend to freeze up and don't know what to say in social settings at all. So this is my second one. This is my felted hood, and it goes on to the story about how some days I just have really bad thoughts, such as the right side. It's an emerald green. It represents poison. The swirls are my thoughts. And then to the left side is a lighter green, and it represents healing and the days I have that are good. In the center is a crown, though, because the crown represents how no matter how you're feeling on either day, I know that I am still worth something as a person, and that my thoughts are valid on the good and bad days. My frog shines much like a frog. It's kind of like slimy, and I chose to use a lot of desaturated colors because I just love those colors in my projects, but in my next one they're going to get much brighter because it's the turning point of my story. So for this third project, we did woven wall hangings using cardboard looms. And so this is my, this is titled, It's Raining Frogs. So my last one was two sides of the same frog, and my first one was a frog in my throat. Now, the first two were about my struggles, and so this one's a turning point. Raining frogs are supposed to represent a new beginning, an awakening. And I changed this color scheme to make it lighter. And the blue is the sky, it has clouds, and the raya knots I made here are the frogs. And I have words saying raining new frogs as an analogy to raining new ideas and possibilities. This is, in my journey of college, I've figured out what I wanted to do with myself in my life, and I've gained more confidence whenever I decided to switch majors into art because I find a lot of comfort in it.
So my wall weaving is about coming to terms with who I am as a person with my gender. Throughout my whole life, I never really felt that I was whole or the person that I was meant to be until fairly recently, the past couple of years. So this piece has a lot of jokes and puns in it that are about that discovery and about that community that I've really found with friends on the internet, just in general. So things like a hanger coming out of the closet or coming out of your shell really captures that self-discovery and that journey that I've been on for a long time. And it's still a journey that's ongoing, and it's nothing that I'm going to be done with anytime soon, but representing that that's a part of me that I understand a lot better about myself now than if you had asked me a couple years ago, just any question. I felt like I know myself better. I tried to fit as many of these jokes in as possible, and it was a lot of fun. It was a community building experience with my friends, trying to find the best ways to bring in these little puns or these little sayings we have or we say within our chats pretty much daily. Some of the symbolism involves like all those puns I was talking about is like the color scheme is the transgender flag. The dragonfly and the tadpole, both are animals that undergo some sort of metamorphosis when they're in their final form. These bottles are actually used testosterone bottles, since I have to give myself a shot once a week. And so these are testosterone bottles that I've saved up over the past couple of months because I know I wanted to do something with them. We've got the hanger for coming out of the closet. We've got the shells for coming out of your shell. Yeah, that's about it. So my hood tells a story of my dog. My dog has been the light in a dark tunnel this past year, and I don't know where I'd be without him. And so I like to think of the comfort he gives me, and I wanted to make that physical in some way. And so with replicating the way his fur looks, with his big sticky up ears, and the kind of collar that he wears that I make for him, when I see this, I think of my dog and it makes me smile.
Okay, so the weaving my story tells is the relationship that I have with my bed, because I spend most of my time on it because of a mystery illness that I have chronically. And normally I would try to convey some forms of my bed with my art, and I did in this weaving. As you can tell, the little pillows on here represents the pillows, and each pillow has a word on it: hotspot, chronic, and safe haven. Because a bed is very comfy, and I find it like a safe haven because I'm always on there, and there I can really fully recover from a flare that I would have probably a week before or the day of. And the colors that I chose for it are reminiscent of what I have on my bed. Like the yellow shows like the color pillows I have. The blue represents the comforter, and the green up here represents the curtains that I have on my wall. So yeah. So the story that my hood tells is a story of how at night normally I would get this creative flow in me that I normally wouldn't have early in the morning. It is a very blue hood that I really like because the color blue represents obviously the night sky and also the color of my bed that I said earlier. And I also wanted to incorporate the clouds and night sky to show the flowiness of the clouds and such, to show how fluid I was when it came to working on my art.
The story that my weaving tells is about nostalgia and just missing my youth and wanting to go back and just be a kid again. So I went for kind of a sunset theme, and I have all these little pieces that just represent people in my life that I miss, and it's basically just about looking back on good memories. So my hood is more of a hat. I kind of wanted to do something a little bit different with this one, and it has little suns and moons on it, and it's just meant to represent day and night and how life always keeps moving, and how things in the end can always get better.
So the story that my wall hanging tells is about how I imagined it's through the journey where I imagined this year would be one way, and it transitioned into something else through the pandemic. And so this is sort of a representation of how that year became. And so the use of random tassels and little loose ends helps show that there's parts that fall through a little bit from my original plan, but the unique way that it comes back uniform every once in a while shows more of, I guess, the beauty and how my life's evolving without me realizing. And I made sure to attach pieces of paper listing things that I didn't plan to happen, but big events that did happen. And I left a space for what's left to come this year. So for my hood, it tells the full story of me, of what I was planning, and the me that's going on now, where the outside is what most people would believe to be the inside of a hood, where there's what seems to be loose ends, frayed edges, odd looking bits, and it symbolizes to me the ways that I didn't plan any of this, and I'm just letting it be as it goes. And on the inside is the more finished and cleaner pieces of the hood that symbolize what I had wanted to plan, had wanted to do, and all of my ideas I had.
My weaving wall hanging is based on the colorful madness that goes on in my head. So there's nothing very bland that goes on in there. There's a lot of chaos going on, a lot of fringe, and yeah, a lot of my favorite colors: green, bright orange, and purples. For my hood, I did a ski mask, and my hood is called Musty Robber. This one's more of an abstract piece other than the flower, but this one's way different than what I've done in the past. There's clothespins, just a whole bulk of randomness, like how in my weaving project, it's super chaotic. This is what I think. Very, very bright colors.
The story of my weaving is an abstract representation of the relationship between nature and femininity. I included some quotes from inspiring women, and I also used colors that represent my theme accurately. The story my hood tells focuses on the uniqueness and beauty of nature. It is inspired by the paintings of Georgia O'Keeffe, who is a really big inspiration of mine. I think that she represents women artists all around the world, and just being a strong woman and being able to recognize beauty in nature.
The name of my weaving is Wabi Sabi, and it's based on a story about a rustic old cabin that my husband bought for me that is far from perfect, with leaning floors and all kinds of critters in it. And it is based on the Japanese tradition of boro, which is intentional repair, intentional correction. So in the weaving, the warp in the weaving reflects the long sashiko stitches that the Japanese in the Japanese culture they used to mend and repair. The wabi sabi tradition. Wabi sabi means beauty and imperfection, and so like my cabin, this weaving is not perfect, but it is beautiful. Okay, my felted hood is called Fish on Fire, and in the hood you'll see the ropes being broken and the fish was freed. The story that this is based on is the relationship that I have with my husband, and it's a relationship that happened later in life, and so there were a lot of fears that were freed, and so that's reflected in the rope, and just the fish is on fire because he's moving forward in that forward momentum of moving through life and being happy and free.